Step 1, remove the dish tray. Then using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the 2 bolts here and here. Then lift up the water dispenser and the collecting tray. Wash the tray thingy under a strong stream of water to remove all of the stuff from the mesh. And now, since my toothbrush wasn't in the cleanest condition, I'm going to use some regular dish soap to sanitize it. Then remove this tray. And then wash this tray in the same manner as we did with the small collecting thingy. And while it's not perfectly clean, there is nothing stuck in the holes, and that's what matters to me. Then inspect this area to make sure there isn't any big food pieces that somehow made their way through the mesh screens. There is this stuff on the bottom, but I'm not hugely concerned about it because those pieces look relatively small to be able to be removed with discharge pipes. Having said that, I still think that it's going to be a good idea to wipe it with some Lysol. And while you're at it, pay extra attention to the area behind here because sometimes food gets stuck there. And I just picked out these little pieces out of there. And this is some of the stuff that I was able to pick out using this method. An optional step, but highly recommended to do every once in a while, I do this roughly once every 6 months, is to remove the hoses for both the discharge and intake for the water and to clean them. When you remove this, a little bit of water is going to come out, so make sure to have a little rag handy. Make sure to take this black O-ring off because it's not attached to the hose and it's really easy to lose it. At this point, when the hoses are off, you can either use your mouth and blow some air through them or put it next to the water source and blow some water through it both directions. We have water coming through here and coming out of there. To make the process a little bit easier, you can remove this attachment from the hoses. Once the hoses have been cleaned, you can reattach them. And make sure to not forget about the O-ring that you took off earlier from this hose. It's a little bit different. Flat end goes onto the hose, and the end that has little indentations goes onto the machine. And if at some point you put it together and you notice that it leaks a little bit from this area, make sure to check the O-ring and then maybe tighten this end a little bit. At some point the O-ring will wear, but if the machine is relatively new, like 2-3 years old, and it leaks, chances are you just need to tighten it, and you can get away without replacing the O-ring just yet. A lot of times stuff gets inside these grooves, so make sure to clean this area. Then after you gave this piece a little wash, reattach it. This hose goes onto the bigger piece. And once this piece has been cleaned, I like to put some WD-40 on the inside here to make sure that these pieces stay lubricated. However, if you're a little extra like me, and you think that WD-40 is not a sufficient lubricant, which in my opinion it isn't, I use this specific lubricating WD-40, which has some, I suppose, extra elements that will stay in there for longer. And I don't go too crazy, I just go tiny squirt here, tiny squirt here, move it around, make sure that it sits in there. I'm going to wipe the excess off with the rag. It's not a bad idea to give the whole machine a little bit of a scrub down. I have a jar of baking soda for various cleaning purposes around the house, so I'm just going to use that. And then I'm going to use a toothbrush to scrub it down. And once I'm done agitating all of the dirt and grime and soap scum from the sides of the dishwasher, I'm going to use a wet rag and give it a little once over. So now we're going to reassemble the dishwasher, starting with this. Then we're going to use the tray. And then we're going to put this thing back in. When putting these screws back in, don't go too crazy. They only need a little bit of tension. Also, the holes on the other end are made of plastic, so it's really easy to strip them, so be extra careful. Then let's put the tray back in. And the same story here. If this or this hose leaks while you're operating it, just tighten it a little bit more. Chances are this is going to help you get rid of the leak. So during the first test, I realized that this thing is leaking quite strongly. So I'm going to put the camera down and tighten these. And after I tightened it with my trusted rusty pliers, no more leaks. After all that, we're going to run the dishwasher on the clean cycle, which takes 10 minutes. And while you're doing it, check the hoses on the back to make sure that there is no leaks. Once you figure out nothing is leaking, you're done.